Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Manchester United are hosting Tottenham Hotspur this weekend and they'll be looking to bounce back from their dismal loss against Nottingham Forest. Fun fact for you, Manchester United are the only side in the Premier League top 10 with a negative goal difference. They actually sit on -5. Tottenham have a healthy +13. But in this game, can Tottenham exploit Manchester United's various weaknesses and take all 3 points? Well, we're going to be having a look. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. It really helps me out and it'd be a nice thing to do. So thank you. But without further ado, let's get into it. To begin, we're going to be having a look at the starting lineups, and as they are the side at home, we're going to begin with Manchester United. I've got them set up in their 4-3-3 formation. We've got Bayindir in goal, and that is down to the fact that Andre Onana will probably have gone to the Africa Cup of Nations by now. Wan-Bissaka out on this right-hand side because Diogo Dalot is playing on the left. Luke Shaw is a question mark, and that's why I've got Dalot in this left-back slot. The centre-back partnership is Johnny Evans and Rafael Varane. Harry Maguire was touted to have been available for selection, but he's still a doubt, and that's why I've gone with this partnership from the game against Wigan. Kobe Manu is up in front of him as the central defensive midfielder. He is followed up by Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay. I think Erik ten Hag likes that sense of presence, that like of attacking style, and the physicality that McTominay brings to his attacking play. On the right hand side we have Alejandro Garnacho, who has really started to find some form out on this right hand side. He operates there far better than Marcus Rashford out on this left, and I've got Rashford in this side because there isn't really too many other options. Rasmus Højlund is the player up front. He's going to be looking to kick on after his Premier League goal against Aston Villa, and this is your Manchester United side. And now let's turn our attention to the visiting side, Tottenham Hotspur. They are set up in their 4-2-3-1 formation. I've got Vicario in goal as ever, Pedro Porro out on this right hand side, and Emerson Royal still as the right-handed centre-back. We know that Romero is still injured and they're still lacking that centre defensive presence. However, they have made a signing. I'm not sure whether he's going to be ready to start in the game against Manchester United, so that's why I've got Royal here instead. Speaking of players that are going to be returning, we've got Van de Ven coming back in at that left centre-back slot. What a signing he has been, and they are going to be extremely happy that the fact that they've come back into the starting lineup. He was on the bench for their previous game against Burnley, and I do believe that he will be starting in this crucial match against Manchester United. Destiny Udogie, one of the best left backs, if not the best left back in the league this season, is out in his normal favoured position. We've got Bentancur and Oliver Skipp as the two holding central midfielders, and then Giovanni Lo Celso up in front of him. Now this is an interesting question to ask because James Maddison should be fit there or thereabouts, and it remains to be seen whether Postecoglou is going to risk playing Maddison in this game. If he's anywhere near fit, I think you would try and get him on the pitch. However, there is still a doubt over it, so I've gone for Lo Celso because he played quite well against Burnley in their last game. Forward line, I'm looking at Brennan Johnson out on this left hand side, Dejan Kulusevski out on this right, and leading the line because of Son's absence to the tournament in Asia, we've got Richarlison, and this is your Tottenham Hotspur side. Let's now try and have a look at how this game is going to break down, and this is not going to be easy viewing or listening for Manchester United fans, but it's something that really needs to be aired and needs to be said. These are two sides with two contrasting ways of playing, but they're from managers with attacking philosophies, possession-based philosophies, and one team is doing it perfectly and the other team is doing it, well, poorly. Bet you can guess which one of them is doing it poorly. Manchester United, of course, will focus on them first. Now, if I was to highlight some of the Man United players out of this system and out of this 11 that are not comfortable or don't appear to be comfortable with the ball, it becomes quite concerning. I don't think Rafa Varane is particularly comfortable with the ball at his feet, albeit he's come from Real Madrid. Yes, he looked okay, but generally when under pressure he starts to panic. Wan-Bissaka I wouldn't say is particularly comfortable, but that's not where his strength is. But he's in a side that needs to play possession-based football, and at the moment he's not looking all too comfortable. Scott McTominay also does not like recycling the ball. He does not like being in positions where he's under pressure, and he can't really handle that pressure once he receives the pass. Marcus Rashford is another one of these players who really cannot receive the ball under pressure, he can't recycle possession, and in a possession-based team, he just looks a little bit out of place. Manchester United had most of the ball against Wigan, and he was by far the most concerning part of that Man United attack. Going forwards, his touch looked a little bit off, his passing looked a little bit off, he doesn't weight things correctly, and I could say that for the other three players that I've mentioned. I wouldn't essentially say that Alejandro Garnacho looks completely comfortable, but he's young and he's starting to get a little bit better. As for the rest of them, they look okay. I think there's a big question mark over Rasmus Højlund, but his real build-up play is not necessarily the thing that's being questioned at the moment. But when we're talking about building up from the back, that's a real concern here. With 3 out of your 4 right-sided players unable or uncomfortable to really play with the ball, and this is where one of the main problems come from, because Erik ten Hag is asking this Manchester United side to build up from the back. You see Aaron Wan-Bissaka start to come into midfield or try to make some overlapping runs. You see Dalot coming into midfield. Kobbie Mainoo is absolutely fine, but Scott McTominay is almost doing nothing when going forwards. And then there's the break-up when it comes to defensive play. Scott McTominay and Bruno Fernandes go forwards, which is fine. So you have 5 attackers and you have 5 defenders. But the problem with this system is that because of the attacking intent that Erik ten Hag is trying to get into this United side, Dalot supports and so does Wan-Bissaka, which leaves essentially these 3 isolated far too often. And in a midfield of Bruno Fernandes, Scott McTominay and Kobbie Mainoo, Mainoo is left on an absolute island, and it's where Tottenham comes in here for me, because I think Tottenham are going to isolate Mainoo and isolate the flanks from the way that Manchester United go forwards, and it's through these 2 avenues that I think Tottenham are going to get most of their joy. Manchester United do not defend well, they concede far too many shots, and they don't really score goals for all the men that they try to commit forward, which means they're lacking in quality. But especially when you're looking at these 3 players. Mainoo will be sitting and holding. It could be Eriksen, it could be Amrabat, it could be Casemiro. It doesn't matter. The system is the same. The 2 central attacking midfielders or the 2 attacking midfielders are too narrow and they push up far too much. There's too much of a gap between the CDM and the 2 attacking mids, and that means that teams can put players into pockets of space to really exploit that. Mainoo will have far too much to do. It's too much ground to cover, and that's where you start to get the overloads on either side. Man United do not know how to deal with that. Generally, teams push back their entire defence, so the 2 attacking mids would drop back to really fill in those gaps, but it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen often enough to really stifle opposition attacks. And this is where Tottenham come in. We know how Tottenham are going to play. The Celso is going to come out on the side, we've got Skip coming forwards, and then that means and it allows for Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie to come into midfield, creating that box that we all know. It allows for possession, it allows for wide areas through the 2 wingers, and it also allows for dynamism when going through. This overload over these 3 Man United players is going to be devastating, and I haven't even gotten to the way that Tottenham are properly going to attack this United side. Taking what we've just mentioned, we're going to apply it to a more attacking scenario in favour of Tottenham. I think Tottenham will have the ball even though the game is at Old Trafford. I think Man United will try to keep the ball, but they will fail to. The press from Tottenham will be far too great, and the turnovers will gradually and eventually go in Tottenham's favour, and they will have most of the ball. When they have most of the ball, we know that the fullbacks come into midfield. We know that the 2 players going forwards in attacking midfield areas will start to isolate the sole central defensive midfielder, and it will look something like this. Now, Manchester United have conceded a ridiculous number of goals and number of chances from flanks and wide areas. And generally, this is down to players hitting the byline and then playing crosses towards the edge of the penalty area or just around the penalty spot. And this is down to the lack of running or the lack of awareness of late man runs or blindsided runs. I'm looking at Skip and Lo Celso to really be making some runs in behind Wan-Bissaka and Diogo Dalot. It doesn't really matter who the Man United players are, but this is the same thing that Tottenham are going to make. The balls in behind and the ability to play through the lines is something that Manchester United are just not going to be able to deal with. Evans and Varane will try their very best, but I think it will be all for naught. Kobbie Mainoo will try to move cross from side to side, But as I said previously, he will be overwhelmed. Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay will not know what to do when they are confronted by Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro. These are the two main duels that I need to look at as well, because if Man United are going to get any joy, they need to stop these two from going forwards. Now, Scott McTominay against Destiny Udogie is an absolute mismatch. I don't think he's going to be winning that duel, and for that reason, I think that Tottenham are going to have an absolute field day out on this left-hand side. Wan-Bissaka up against Brennan Johnson is fine, but it's not necessarily the battle there that is going to win or lose Tottenham the game. It's the passes in behind Wan-Bissaka that he's not going to be able to follow, which are going to be even more crucial. The cutbacks towards the penalty spot, as I've mentioned, are going to be devastating for this Manchester United team, and I do think that if Tottenham start to get a little bit of momentum, this United team's heads drop, they don't know how to combat, they don't really know how to come back. And then you've got big question marks over the two Manchester United wingers. Do they cut back? Do they follow? Do they follow the runs of Brennan Johnson? Do they follow the runs of Destiny Udogie and Kulusevski? Or do they try to play on the counter, which is obviously an option for Man United going forwards? I think it's their best option. Utilising Marcus Rashford's pace, utilising Alejandro Garnacho's pace, they'll pass the ball over to Bruno Fernandes to try and find those areas. And it will look a little something like this, because of the high line that Tottenham play, because of the press that they try to do, and because they commit wingers and right back and left back into that central midfield area, it does allow for some pressure and some counter-attacking space, and that's something that United are really going to try and look towards. If you look at the line that I've drawn here, that's held by Van de Ven. It will be held by Van de Ven and Royal. Generally by Van de Ven, because he will be the sweeper to come around and help Real whenever he gets into some trouble. But Rashford will try to find these areas, and so will Garnacho. Mainu and all of the Man United team will be looking for Bruno Fernandes, who'll be dropping that little bit deeper to try and find those areas and then ping it over to these wide positions. The problem that Man United have in this, though, is the recovery time for Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie. They're two very, very fast players, and Tottenham are doing a good job this season of recovering, of making sure those recovery runs are there and setting themselves into a good defensive block. I don't see a way for Manchester United to get through this Tottenham defence. I don't see a way for them to really break through that Tottenham pressure, and I can only see one winner here. The pressure from Tottenham going forwards, the ability for them to really dictate play, and those blindsided runs, along with the overloads that are created through the lack of running back through the midfield, is just going to be devastating for this Manchester United side. I've got Tottenham winning by 3-0, but if I'm honest, it could be more. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.